What is up, Waffle Gang? I do hope you're well. My name is Mark, and today we're covering some r/am I the butthole. If you'd like to skip the initial waffle, timestamps are in the description and along the timeline below, but if you are new here, please consider hitting that like, that subscribe, and maybe that notification bell too. That is if you enjoy the content, of course. Yesterday over on Patreon we had Alyssa Herzella, and on YouTube we had Hilly H and Sherry Taylor join us. Thank you so much for your support. It really does mean the world to me. And just for everyone, as I always say, for coming here every day, for taking the time out of your days to come here and watch these videos. It's just, I still can't get over it. Thank you so much. And with that being said, let's just crack on with today's stories. Much love, guys. And our first story comes from a throwaway account. Am I the arsehole for telling my mum I don't consider her a parent at all? I, 18 female, and my brother, 21, live together in a house with my parents and both grandparents. It's been this way for as long as I can remember. My parents don't work as they're both on disability, and my grandparents are working. We moved in with my grandparents when I was around 2 or 3, so I don't remember much before then, but my grandparents have told me and my brother stories from then. Apparently the apartment we lived in was a disaster and they rarely cleaned it, and my grandma invited my parents to live with them, out of fear CPS will take us away. Anyway, when we moved in, my grandparents were always the ones looking out for me and my brother. They cooked, they helped us with homework and taught us most life skills that we needed. They did stuff that parents should normally do. My problem isn't with my dad, he does his best with a disability. It's with my mum. My mum has done so many things that could have affected me and my bro in the long run. An example, using the extra money the government gave them to use on me and my brother's needs on themselves, never on us. She's also really overprotective and restricting. She must know exactly where we're going, what time we'll be back, and if we're buying something we must tell her what we're buying. Plus, she always compared me to my aunt, and every little thing I do, she'd be like, "She's just like Auntie. Auntie always does that." I've told her so many times to stop saying it, but she doesn't listen, saying I'm just speaking the truth. It hurts when your mum doesn't see you for you, but just sees you as her younger sister. Anyway, I'm in my first year of college and just had midterms. At dinner, my grandma asked me how they went, and I told her I did pretty well. She smiled and said she was proud of me. My mum then said, "I helped you grow up so much," and I blew up. I told her, "What have you done? You haven't done anything in my 18 years of life and my brother's 21 years. You took the money the government gave you to use on us and spent it on yourself. You never played with us and just annoyed the living hell out of us anyways. Why do you think we stay inside our rooms all day? So we don't have to deal with you." She flipped and said she's done so much for us and I should be more respectful to her. And that's when I finally said, "I don't even consider you my mum. Grandma has taught us so much about life than you have. She helped me when I needed it, when you just sat there and laughed." She started crying and my dad started yelling at me for being so ungrateful, and that's when I grabbed my coat and left. I'm leaving out so much other stuff, but I don't want to make this any bigger than it has to be. I don't feel like the arsehole. I actually feel relieved for finally telling her how I felt. Reddit, am I the arsehole? You know, we've learnt this multiple times on this channel that mum and dad are just titles. You know, if they didn't look out, it sounds like your grandparents looked after you way more than your actual parents. Although you did say your dad was trying, so let's give a little bit of credit there, I guess. And the fact that your grandparents actually invited you to stay with them out of fear CPS will take you away, it says a lot really, doesn't it? So yeah, I can't say you're the arsehole for just boiling over and just saying that. I think some people just need the blunt end of the stick sometimes and hope that they will step back and correct themselves and apologise for what they've done or haven't done. But who knows what's going to happen with this mother, and I hope it does work out well, but not the arsehole in my opinion. But let's have a look at some of the comments to see what they say. Jojo Music says, "Not the arsehole. This is an extremely unpopular opinion, so I'll probably get hate for it. But you don't have to respect someone just because they're your parent if they don't deserve that respect. Stand your ground, because from what little you disclosed, your mum sounds like she has narcissistic tendencies at the very least, which do more damage than they, or the people around them, realise. I'm so sorry you have to deal with this. I'm not very close to my mum for a lot of reasons, so I understand what you're feeling." Not a Girl says, "As a wise, grumpy blue alien once said, he may have been your father boy, but he wasn't your daddy." Not the arsehole. CatsDude33 says, "Not the arsehole. If CPS was going to get involved when you were children, I can infer things were very bad. They only get involved in serious shit." Flat Summer says, not the arsehole, your grandparents allowed you to come stay with them because your grandparents feared you'd be taken away by CPS. If that doesn't make your mum think how bad the situation they were in was, then I don't know what does. You, your brother, were raised by your grandparents, not your mum, and it's about time she had a reality check on that, and the truth hurts sometimes. Maybe she would take that on board and make a change. Maybe she won't. Either way, you're an adult now, so asking her where you're going, what you're spending your money on, etc. has nothing to do with her. Now, I turn this one to you guys. Do you think that OP was right for blowing up at the table, or do you think she could have handled it a better way? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to vote on that poll in the description for story 1. And our next story is from Eat Me Jabroni. Serious wrestling vibes back then. Am I the arsehole for storming out of a dinner with my wife and her best friend? I went out to eat with my wife and her best friend. I don't like her friend because she's a very selfish, self-centered, loud and irritating person to be around, and her friend knows that I hold that opinion about her. There's a lot more to it than that, but this post would be much too long if I were to go over the more in-depth reasons we don't get along. Anyways, because of my feelings towards a friend, they've been having issues with their own friendship. We all decided to go out to eat in order to make things better between us, and while self-admittedly her friend did kind of annoy me throughout, I thought the dinner had gone well. That all changed when the bill finally came. We had already decided to go half on the tip. While I put $15 down, she thought it'd be funny to pull out her purse and make a heart out of pennies for a tip. I saw that and asked if she was serious, to which she said, well, I don't really believe in tipping. That upset me, so I pulled out my wallet, put an extra 10 down and started getting up to leave. Her friend said, what did I do? And I told her, I just don't feel like conversing with a piece of shit anymore, and I went to my car. When my wife came to the car, she began to yell at me. I told her I understood why she was angry, but that some people just don't get along, and I felt it was best that her friend and I stopped trying to get along. I don't control my wife and she's allowed to hang out with anyone she pleases, so while I do see why her friend and I getting along would be ideal, I don't see why it's mandatory that we get along for their own friendship to work. Am I the arsehole for storming out like I did? Now this is going to verge between a not the arsehole and an everyone sucks here, and the only reason I would say everyone sucks here because, you know, in an adult world we can handle things a bit more maturely. Sure, some people need to be called out some of the time, but it's all about picking your battles and knowing when to do that. And I don't think that was the right place to do that. I know she's an arsehole for not tipping in my opinion and then making some weird little heart with pennies. But you did right by covering the tip with yours, but then I think you should have just bit your tongue and then walked out and discussed it with your wife later on, rather than just blowing up and causing a scene, which I don't think was necessary. You know, some people might think, yeah, that was absolutely necessary, but I think I would have handled it by just sort of biting my tongue, putting the money down and discussing it later on. So that's a very personal view on that everyone sucks here, and I get why some other people would say absolutely not the arsehole, she deserved to be called out. But I totally get what he's saying, that, you know, some people are just not compatible and you don't want to converse with them, you don't want to be around them. And I think that's absolutely fine. That's your choice in life. As I've learned from the last 2 years of my life, life is very short. Make the most of it and do what you want with it. And don't put up with arseholes. So let's have a look at some of the comments below and see what they say. Glittering Joke says, everyone sucks here. I get that you hate your friend, and maybe she is annoying, and the tipping thing makes her an arsehole, but I definitely don't get the sense from this post that you are much of a peach yourself. Treeflower says, slight not the arsehole. You probably could have handled that better, but your wife's friend is not your friend. If she wants to hang out with her, but their friendship is somehow strained, that's on your wife, not you. I don't see why your wife wants you to like her friend so badly anyways. Also, the pennies thing was a low move from her. My friend used to be a waitress, and when I asked her about that, she says that she would rather the customer just not leave a tip than make her clean all those pennies off of a table. A Will says, everyone sucks here. The adult thing to do would have been to cover her tip and bite your tongue, then discuss in private with your wife why you won't be spending another moment of your time with this woman. Your wife is a slight arsehole for continually trying to put you two in situations that are going to bring conflict, and frankly, for choosing a person for a best friend. ETA, your wife is more than a slight arsehole for responding to your reaction by yelling at you for not keeping the peace. The friend is a major arsehole for agreeing to split the tip and then pulling some BS like this when it's time to settle up. If she didn't believe in tipping, she should have made that clear from the beginning. If she were genuinely interested in making peace to appease your wife, she shouldn't be creating unnecessary drama in this matter. She just as easily could have done the adult thing and chipped in for an appropriate tip, as she has said she would, especially when you initially prompted her to not be an arsehole about it. And then a comment that's, you know, counters mine and everyone else's, and I think it's a totally valid comment too. You know what? No, it's not. And your advice is half the problem with modern society. Not calling out arseholes when they're being arseholes, especially when they're habitual arseholes, is how they get away with it. Calling her out for a bullshit with a tip was the right move. You know, but it's just something that I wouldn't have personally done. But I can totally get why someone would want to call someone out too. And in some ways they should. But what would you do in that situation? How would you have handled it? Would you call them out, or would you have just sort of settled it and then just not seen them again? Let me know how you deal with it in the comments below, and don't forget to vote on that poll in the description for story 2. And before we start on the next story, just a little trigger warning, there's mentions of miscarriage in this next one. Our next story is from a throwaway account. Am I the arsehole for not allowing my child to have a relationship with their mother-in-law? So I, 27 female, and my husband, 26 male, suffered a miscarriage last year. It was so hard for everyone. There is a tradition in my husband's family to name the firstborn girl Lena, fake name, and the firstborn boy Jude, real name, but no one in the story has that name, so I think it's fine. Before the miscarriage, we had never had a problem with those names and traditions, and I think having family traditions are cute. However, last year before the miscarriage, we found out she was a girl, so naturally we told everyone her name was Lena. Now I am currently 6 months pregnant, and it's another girl. My husband and I just announced her name, Eliana, on Facebook. Most people just commented on how cute the name was or something similar. Then my mother-in-law messaged me and started flipping out. She said that we always agreed that the baby's first name would be Lena. I told her our first child was named Lena. We argued for a bit, and then she sent a message that read, "The agreement was your first born child." Then she sent another message saying no matter what we name our child, she would always call her Lena. I immediately blocked her. I showed the messages to my husband, who was pissed off. He sent her a message to say that we're cutting her off and that she will not get to meet the baby for a long time after it's born. Then he blocked her as well. Lots of family members have been messaging us to cut her some slack as she's grieving the fact that she'd never have a grandchild named Lena. My husband's older brother has 3 boys and isn't having any more kids. I feel that her comments were so unnecessary and she isn't respecting that I still think of Lena as my child. But others think I was overreacting and I shouldn't deprive my daughter of a relationship with her grandmother over some stupid remarks. So, am I the arsehole? Edits. This is Kai's husband. I'm reading some of your responses. I just asked you to please stop thanking me for sticking up for my wife. When I got married, I married Kaya, not my mother, so of course I'm going to side with my wife. Thank you all for leaving such kind replies, but I think we should stop congratulating men for doing the absolute bare minimum. Edit 2, I let my husband use my phone for a little while, and he wrote the last edit, but I'ma keep it because it's cute. Edit 3, guys, Lena isn't the real name, so maybe it's close to Eliana, but it's not close at all to the real name. I'm using a fake name, Lena, because it's also mother-in-law's name. Now, I may have pronounced that Lena wrong the whole story, so I do apologise if I did get it wrong. However, how can the mother-in-law say that, like, the agreement was your firstborn child? How disrespectful, how rude is that? And like, just no empathy whatsoever from what you're actually going through, the grief you'll be suffering. And then saying, oh, no matter what you do, I'm going to name the child that anyway. No. You have totally the right thing to say. Unless she comes to you and makes a big heartfelt apology, I think I'd do exactly the same as you in this situation. And you know, regardless, these family traditions, you don't have to do them. Just because they're a tradition doesn't mean you're tied to it immediately. That's your choice still. You name the child whatever you want to name it, right? But let's have a look at some of the comments below to see what they say. Men Aren't Throwaway says, and quotes, cut her some slack as she's grieving the fact that she'd never have a grandchild named Lena, instead of, you know, grieving the loss of her unborn grandchild. Your mother-in-law is a fucking narcissist, not the arsehole. Claire Swin says, not the arsehole, you lost your child and she had a name. Your mother-in-law is so far out of line that I gasp when you mention her wording to you. Her comparing grief and not having a namesake to the loss of your daughter is staggeringly crass. Fabulous Saute says, not the arsehole, congratulations on your pregnancy. Eliana is a beautiful name. Dr. Banner says, not the arsehole for many reasons. Firstly, it's your choice to make between you and your husband. Just because it's tradition doesn't mean you have to do it. Secondly, you did do it. Just because you had a miscarriage doesn't mean that wasn't your child. And depending on how far along you were, a miscarriage can be pretty much giving birth anyway. A sad fact that not even many women know if they haven't been through it. You're not depriving her of a relationship over stupid remarks. You're making the decision not to subject your child to being called a name that isn't hers, only to have her grow up and ask her uncomfortable questions about why grandma always calls her that. That's a story for when you're ready to tell your child. Now, what do you guys think of this story? What would you do in that situation if your mother-in-law did do that? If she said, I'm going to call your child what I want to call your child, would you cut her off completely, or would you approach it in a different way? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to vote on that poll in the description for story 3. And our next story is from Resident Work. Am I the arsehole for having a wedding but not telling the venue, caterers, etc. it is for a wedding to save costs? If you haven't heard of wedding tax, many caterers, venues and other things will charge more for weddings than if it's just any other meeting. I saw a video from CBC News where the venues for several hundred people costed over $1,000 more if it was for a wedding than an anniversary or some other gathering, which is ridiculous because it isn't costlier for the venue to host a wedding as opposed to any other gathering with the same amount of people. I tested this out. My friends called the venue asking about hosting other events and a wedding, and it would be an additional $1,700 for us to host a wedding, then other, so we did other. We pulled the same shit with the caterers and for the decorations. The caterers found out and seemed not to care. Neither did the people supplying the decorations, but the venue was fucking pissed. We paid for everything up front and they sent us an invoice for $2,000 saying we owe them more for lying to them and that weddings cost more. I told them to piss off and hung up when they called me. They kept calling and emailing and I just ignored them. I got sick of their calls, so on the 5th time in the day they called me and I said, "Listen, you cocksucking pieces of shit, I've told you many times to stop fucking calling me or you'll fucking regret it. We paid the fees, we don't owe you anything else, so piss off." And I hung up. My wife is saying I'm too rude and I have other family members who are saying we scam them and we owe them. I told them to shut up, I've got more important shit to do than deal with these assholes. Edit, the wedding happened already. Well, doesn't OP sound like a beautiful flower? Well, straight away, you're definitely going to be the arsehole for the way you spoke to these people. I don't think there's ever an excuse, especially in this situation, to just speak to someone like that, call them a cocksucking piece of shit, and they'll regret it if they phone up again. You know, there's no need for that, so that immediately makes you the arsehole. But the whole wedding thing and, you know, potentially scamming a venue out of extra money, whether it be in wedding tax or not. I've worked with, oh, here I go again. In the past, in one of my little self-employed little side roles I done once, I helped set up a wedding, and I was helping these people convert. It was like a barn. It was like a barn that was set out for weddings and meetings and things like that. And I watched them convert it from a standard company meeting to a wedding, and it took over 2 to 3 days to do. And in this time, they obviously changed all the chairs, all the tables. They made sure the floor was ultra polished because obviously the bride was getting married in a white wedding dress, so they didn't want the dress to get dirty or anything like that. They cleaned all the windows specifically for the day. They cleaned the outside. They mowed the grass, all especially for this wedding. Apparently, they used to do that weekly. They used to clean and mow the grass and stuff weekly, but on wedding days they specifically do all this to make it look perfect for the wedding day. And that might be part of the reason extra cost. I don't know if it justifies the extra cost for it. And that was a very sort of situational one, which I just mentioned. But, you know, if they are just inflating costs as wedding tax, you know, that's what they're charging. You agree to pay that price when you sign a contract with them. If you don't like it, find somewhere cheaper. It's that simple, really. And you might disagree with me, but that is it. That is simply it. You go in and try and scam them after you probably had to sign a contract to say it wasn't a wedding. So you will get sued in the end and you will lose that money. So it's that simple, really. If you don't want to pay those prices for a certain venue, go somewhere else. It's that simple. But again, I might be totally wrong. I usually am. So let's go to the comments below to see what they say. Snakes can't wear pants says. Oh God, that name. You're the arsehole. You were fully aware in advance that they charge a different fee for weddings. If you didn't like it, you didn't have to choose that venue. You're not entitled to their service at the lower cost, even if you think it's the same or that cost isn't fair. If you want to have a wedding there, you have to pay for it. Lying to avoid paying what they charge doesn't become okay just because you think what they charge is unfair. I don't think it's fair that I have to pay 25 cents more a pop for organic tomatoes because the store is out of regular ones. But if I take off the stickers and tell the cashier they're regular tomatoes to get a lower price that I want, I'm still stealing. Unit Healthy says you're the arsehole for the excessively rude way you spoke. You sound like a real piece of work, and even your brand new wife thinks you're rude, and over something this trivial. Wait till something real happens in your life. You need anger management. Sammy says, you're the arsehole. Weddings cost more because they are more likely to tear up the venue than say a 50th wedding anniversary party. Can't explain why other vendors might charge more. Black Cat Luna says, you're the arsehole. The person on the receiving end of your abusive call is likely got nothing to do with the surcharge. There are methods of being honest while opening a dialogue about why wedding tax exists for a given venue. Money saving expert here in the UK advises to get quotes from the same event under different names. Your real name getting the wedding price, then asking the venue, why does my friend say that you'll do event for price? It gives them a chance to justify the cost, and then you can tell them if a cheaper service would be sufficient for you. As it is, going into a contract dishonestly is a form of fraud, and if you don't fix things, they're probably going to press charges. And then a Not the Arsehole post just for a bit of balance. Melee Canada says, not the arsehole. As a bride-to-be, I discovered this with flowers of all things. Just want a pretty bunch of flowers, XX price, going to use them in wedding, suddenly triple the price. What some of the you're the arsehole people on here are missing is that venues charges more for weddings, and you would assume for all the little extra touches and things, right? Well, if a venue didn't know it was a wedding, then they didn't do anything extra, so they don't deserve any extra money. Oh, sorry OP, turns out your wife walked through in a white dress, so I have to charge you extra. Please. He found a loophole and got away with it. That's not theft. Now if you go to a venue with all the wedding trimmings, but for regular event price, different story. Now, what do you guys think of this story? I think, it sucks that you have to pay extra for wedding tax and stuff, but I've seen some of the extra things they do, and maybe it's not justified in the full price, but if you don't like the price, go somewhere else, but that's just my opinion. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to vote on that poll in the description for story 4. Once again guys, thank you for being here today. Thank you for all the Waffle Gang fan art you've been sending. It's absolutely great. I'm going to be displaying it in some of the videos soon too. So if you have got some, don't forget to share it on Discord and at me on Twitter too. I would love to see it. Thank you so much, and I will see you, hopefully, if you fancy joining us, in the next one. Take care guys. Much love.